Well, then that too was the your porn name was your name of your first pet in the street you grew up on, and so our first cat was named Spunky, and we grew up on Comstock. So I'd have just they would say, what would be your porn name? It'd be Spunky Comstock.
Oh my God.
That's the best name.
I
don't think you
mean,
can top that.
you can't. I mean, but that needs to come. Brian, I think we found your calling.
I think that's it. That's my podcast name, Spunky Comstock.
God. that is going to live in my head rent free for a few years now.
Spunky.
Wow.
Blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
He's been here once tonight. I think he'll come back. I'm gonna wait for him.
Welcome, my fellow babies, to the 70s versus the 80s. And if in 1981 your favorite album was the Rolling Stones' Tattoo You, and if your favorite television character was Fantasy Island's Tattoo, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, everybody. This is Wolfman Mike on the mic. And as always, I'm joined by Brian. Well, I guess, as you can tell by what we call in the business, the cold open, I guess his name is Brian, the spunky podcaster now. And as you could also tell by the cold open, we are joined by the Bleeding Graves, Hannah and Austin, once again. As you can tell by the creepy synth music, we are talking Carpenter's classic movie, the 1978's Halloween. Also today we are talking creepy 1970s costume that me and Brian grew up with. And we're going to talk about what was the best Halloween candy to grow up with. We got a lot to cover today, so let's get right into it. So that creepy music, I guess we are talking some 1978 Halloween. We are joined by special guests today, the Bleeding Grave, Austin and Hannah. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Good. We haven't talked to you since the Shining episode, and now we made you watch another old movie.
I know, you guys are killing me. Hitting me with all the scary movies.
What do you mean, old movie?
It's like, what, 45 years old? Maybe. Okay, it's a 45-year-old movie. Maybe it's not that old.
It's middle age.
Did you guys have any experience with this movie before this watching, or?
I didn't.
I know.
The Shining.
I know Hannah, has not, because she's just she's a scaredy cat when it comes to those kind of movies. But I definitely have seen that movie numerous times. I couldn't even tell you I couldn't tell you what the time I saw it or what number it was when I saw that one this time around. Like, it's been so many.
I was just going to say, me and Austin are in the same boat, and I think Brian and Hannah have seen it less times.
Yeah, I was going to ask Austin when it was the first time he would have seen it.
I think the first time I saw it was probably back in high school, which is now, it's been almost 15 years now since I've been in high school. Which is kind of crazy to think about in itself. But yeah, it was like the first time when I started really getting more into horror flicks, and Halloween was definitely at the top there, and it was good then, and it's good now.
Did you watch it in a group, or was it more of you kind of just watched it at home alone?
Oh, it was just a solo thing. A bunch of friends were talking about it. That was in my group, like my clique at the time, and I was like, okay, let's watch it. And I think it was on Netflix at that time when Netflix still had DVD services too. So,
Yeah, when the internet used to
Well,
come
you're
in
right.
the
It
mail.
is an old movie if it was back in the Netflix mailing you the DVD age.
yeah.
You know what I saw is there's a YouTube recording of somebody in 1978 was doing a very YouTube thing where they were recording inside the movie theater the last 15 minutes and getting all the crowd
kidding.
screaming and when Donald Pleasance shoots him 6 times, you can hear somebody scream, "Shoot him again!" You can just. It's crazy. People are just screaming their heads off. It's nuts, man.
Man, like, how do you get a camera? Like, those cameras are still pretty big back in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
and
I'm just
bringing them
wondering
into
how
a
he
movie
snuck
theater
it
is a
in, like
big
a trench
no-no.
coat
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
I don't know. So, Hannah, your first time seeing it now, did it seem, I mean, it must have seemed dated to you, but what are your observations about it?
Honestly, I really psyched myself out for it about 10 minutes into it. 20 minutes into it,
Yeah.
I was laughing, and it was not as scary as I expected it to be. Austin pointed out to me this is where, like, a lot of the tropes that the movies that are actually scary were kind of built off of and everything, and it was really kind of the starting point for it, which makes a lot of sense. But I enjoyed it. It was definitely a good watch.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering. You're seeing it for your first time, so you're like, oh, another scary guy in a mask. Oh,
scary
another scary
movie.
guy that won't die. No, this was the original one. This is where all that started.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess the original title for this movie was The Babysitter Killers. And then they're like, well, and then they've had such a this had a really limited budget for it. It was an independent movie. I think it's still the most successful independent movie ever. But the fact they said, let's call it Halloween. Let's do it all on one day because that's all we have the budget for. And then they're like, let's just call it Halloween. And that, I think it was just a lucky stroke of genius that they did that. I think that totally made the movie. There was no movie. This was made in 1978. There was no movie with the word Halloween. Like, there was no Halloween Night or Night of the Halloween Killer. Halloween was never used in a movie title. Isn't that crazy?
That's so crazy.
You would have think by then somebody would have made a movie that had Halloween somewhere in the title.
Yeah.
Halloween, really, at least in the United States, didn't become such a big thing until like the 30s or 40s is when trick-or-treating started. So really, Halloween wasn't. I mean, right now it's become almost as big as like Thanksgiving and the way people go all out for it.
Mm-hmm.
In the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was really a vehicle for the candy companies to try to sell more candy. It was in the 70s in this movie that really kind of, I think started the craze for Halloween that we have now. And of course, here in the upper Midwest, we have much better weather in October. So to celebrate and have parties and get-togethers for Halloween makes more sense because you're not going to worry about icy roads, or you can still go outside and things like that. Whereas Thanksgiving or New Year's, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely with some of those costumes too. I mean, I remember as a kid, some of those costumes were pretty warm even on a chilly night. So
Yeah.
it's perfect in the Midwest here.
It's really easy to make a nice toasty costume. They can stay comfortable.
So kind of like we talked about Jaws, and that kind of kicked off the genre of the animal attack movie. So then obviously this movie kicks off the genre of the scary murder and also the Halloween genre.
Yeah, I think it's this, like we said, the creature that cannot be stopped. He living through everything. Kind of faceless. And it's funny you called Jaws there, Brian. I kind of almost see this as a 10% Jaws remake. I mean, it's got the emotionless antagonist that can't be killed and just keeps moving forward. Jaws had doll eyes. This guy had mask eyes or
Mask eyes.
black eyes, like Peter, like you said, he's got black doll eyes. Yeah.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Well, you had talked about how it was like made for less than $1 million, which even for 1978,
I think it was
even independent
300,000
movie-
it was made
or
for.
300,000. Yeah,
Yeah, it was 300,000 me too, I found. Which I was like 22 days to make an entire film. That in itself is pretty crazy.
Yeah, because they filmed it in May of '78. And they needed it out for Halloween in '78,
Yeah.
obviously. So
Yeah.
that's just no movie goes through that fast. Yeah.
Right. And you know how it takes place in Illinois, but the house where they filmed most of the scenes in is actually a house in Pasadena, California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes
And after
sense.
every scene, they would rake up the leaves and put them. They had a giant fan on set. And
Oh,
they'd just
that's
throw some
right.
leaves in front
Yeah.
of it.
Oh,
And they kept raking up the leaves and reusing them for every scene.
Yeah, little movie magic goes a long way.
it does.
And the guy that played Michael Myers was a friend of John Carpenter. He got paid $25 a day to do Michael Myers.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's
the mask, though, I think we were talking about it off the air. The William Shatner, they came back with 2 masks. They went to the mask store. They came back with a clown mask and a William Shatner mask for $2, and they ended up spray painting that kind of a white blue color, and taking off the eyebrows and cutting off the sideburns, of course, and then
Yeah.
roughing up the hair.
Which is crazy.
And then they
'cause
threw it at the end of the movie. They threw it away so that in the sequels they never have the same exact mask again.
No, that's the thing. John Carpenter said this was supposed to be a one and done kind of movie, standalone. He never saw it going past anything, and then all of a sudden, because like you got Halloween 2, that is right after Halloween 1, but then you have the newer movies, the newer trilogy that takes place, I think it was like 30, 40 years later from that night when Laurie finally escaped.
Yeah, I think there's they've rebooted it more times than Spider-Man. I think there's been 3 reboots because there was like a Rob Zombie reboot in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then a 90, or no, maybe that was the 2000s. In 98 they had Halloween H2O with Jamie Lee Curtis. And then like the final one, and then they just had another one called Halloween. There's been like 2 or 3 Halloween 2s. I mean, they've rebooted this thing so
Yeah.
many times.
So
It's like
yeah, so
13
many
movies
times.
total, I think.
And I think, what is it? They said that they had like 16 different masks over the course of the reboots in the different series now, which is crazy. I looked at each individual mask, and I mean, some of those masks looks actually pretty horrid, but at the same time kind of makes sense for being a deranged killer, just going to like a store or something and buying just a cheap mask to put on.
Well, what's even funny about it being a quote-unquote cheap mask, especially in these reboots, is that they now have the money to pay somebody to custom make these masks for each movie, and I'm gonna guess that that's probably what
true,
they did. Prop
yeah.
houses in Hollywood, that's exactly what they do.
so now they spend a lot of money to make a cheap-looking deranged killer mask.
Right? I mean, it's so iconic. Why wouldn't they spend all the money on it now?
This reminds me of the Dolly Parton line. It takes a lot of money to look this cheap.
And towards the end of the movie when Jamie Lee Curtis pulls his mask off for those 3 seconds or whatever, that's not the same actor that was doing the $25 a day. They wanted like a real angelic looking actor. But I think, and they only show him for like 3 seconds, but I think he looks like the 6-year-old Michael being 21. I was like, oh my God, he looks just like that kid was 21. They look the same. Yeah.
They did a good job at casting him that way, because the guy who like originally plays it with just the mask on, can never remember his name, but doesn't look anything like him. A very skinny, scrawny looking guy.
Yeah. And he had some I don't know if he was Fred Astaire's nephew or something, but he had some connection with Fred Astaire, so they said he was really good with moving his body. So yeah. Even though John Carpenter just told him walk, he's like, just walk. He never gave him any directions. So.
Right. Speaking of casting, the one of the main reasons why Jamie Lee Curtis got casted in Halloween is because her mom played the woman in Psycho. And so John Carpenter's idea behind it was get somebody's famous actress kid in here, it's going to bring more people into the box office.
That's not bad. It's not a
Yeah,
bad
and
idea.
that was just a here they get lucky again because that was just a gimmick, get the psycho girl's daughter in there, but then this was Jamie Lee Curtis's first movie, and she just turns out to be a megastar. I mean, she's eventually in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. She's eventually in Trading Spaces with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. I mean, she just goes on to have a tremendous career, and she carries this movie in large parts of it. And I mean, they just got lucky there. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would say she's one of the best one of the best actors in the movie entirely, and I kind of wish she had a little more screen time, but that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, not every kid of an actor is great, but Jamie Lee Curtis certainly has the chops.
She took it and she ran with it.
Okay, Hannah, so I'm not letting you off the hook. What parts look like stupid 70s? Could you tell it was 1978, or did it look like a movie that was portraying 1978?
Oh, yeah.
What
I mean, everything from the houses to the fashion to the hair. The one thing that really got me was the slang and the way the teenagers were talking. That was hilarious. I don't know how accurate a lot of that was, because obviously it wasn't around in the 70s, but I thought it was hilarious.
That was John Carpenter's girlfriend. She wrote half the movie, and she was half the producer on the movie. She wrote all the girl parts, the schoolgirl parts, where that's why that one girl kept saying totally, totally. And I guess if you went to see it in the movie theater, like they re-released it in '79, I guess people started being like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they started shouting back at the screen, totally, just because they'd seen the movie so many times. Yeah.
Why don't you tell them what you thought about the killing scenes, Hannah? I'm curious to see your take on that. Oh my god.
All I really remember was that he didn't warn me about the dog, and that's the one rule we have. You gotta warn me if the dog dies.
Yeah. She looked at me and she goes, Austin, does the dog die? You gotta tell me. And I was like, I can't remember.
So people are okay. They can just, out of the blue, no worries. But if it's a dog...
Forget the people,
Okay.
but the dog,
Understood.
he was just doing his job. He was just trying to protect them.
Doing dog things, yes.
But I will say on the killings, Hannah commented on the acting during the killings.
Oh, now I remember.
Now she remembers.
Specifically with the girls being killed.
Especially the one getting strangled. This is the one Hannah made the most comments towards.
It didn't sound like they were being killed. In fact, it sounded like they were really enjoying themselves, and I thought that was.
You sure you were watching the right Halloween movie?
For a second when Hannah kept making those comments, I'm like, yeah, are we? But I kept telling her, well, you got to remember, this is 1978, and they've built up all this suspense, so now these teenage girls are getting killed. So this was scary back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, nothing to what we've almost been desensitized to this stuff. Now, if you imagine yourself a 14 or 15-year-old kid going to see this movie, it would scare you, I would say, in the 70s or 80s when you're watching it.
Honestly, even at 14 myself, I probably would have been pretty spooked watching it. But yeah, now at 26.
Of the time it came out, it probably was one of the 3 or 4 scariest movies made, up to that point. Whereas now there's certainly been, kind of spurred by this, certainly been a lot more made that are scarier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I was just kind of wondering your guys' or Hannah's opinion, especially because she's seen it for the first time. Because, like I said, everything that happens in this movie we've seen 100 times now, but this was the first movie that had all these tropes and then the soundtrack was John Carpenter just on his piano.
Really?
Just going to town.
He only got 10,000 for that movie. He insisted he gets 10,000. He directed it, co-wrote it, and did the soundtrack.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It's you don't see too many people doing that anymore these days with any movie.
Yeah, it's like Steven Spielberg didn't do the soundtrack to Jaws or
Or play piano, yeah.
Yeah, play the piano. But
Well, Austin, you had said that you had some fun facts that you wanted to bring to the party here with talking Halloween.
Oh, I have one more. The screenplay was actually only written in 2 weeks from start to finish, and they brought it to the production company of it, and they basically were like, "Yep, looks good. It's a go. Like it was very quick to get it moving from the get go, which I was pretty impressed by.
Yeah, and then they spent half their budget. I can't remember what the budget. What did we say it was? What the budget?
It was 300,000.
Yeah.
300,000. They spent half of it on cameras. And as we were talking in the Shining episode, this was one of the movies where they used the
Steadicam.
Steadicam. Thank you. It was Steadicam. They used the Panasonic version, which I can't remember what it's called, Panacam or something. But
Panavision.
yeah. So that was a new technology at the time. And then the girl, when little Michael at the beginning, when you see his little hands pick up the knife and you're looking through his little eye slits, that's actually the co-writer. I should look up her name, but it's her because she was the only one that they couldn't use kids because it would have took too long to record it, and you can only use kids for so long. And she had really tiny hands, so it's actually her hands picking up the knife, and she's actually the little Michael until you see his face. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I did really think that shot was like a really interesting way to start it with like the eye slits. You know, he's looking through his mask and everything, getting that more first person view. I just thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. It definitely added a certain element to it.
Yeah, when they played it on network television, I still remember this, that the eye slits were even smaller. So, I mean, you'd see less violence because there's just those eye slits were so small.
Yeah.
That's how they censored it for network television.
Just close the slits in a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't sound like people are dying, but actually something else, like Hannah alluded to earlier, then you're going to get past the censors.
Right?
See, there we go. Like, yeah, you can't have killing sounds, but you can have all sorts of other sounds.
Do you think that this movie coming out when Mike Myers, the Canadian comedian and actor, was 15, caused him to change his life's work and become a goofball Canadian actor, sharing the same name as the protagonist in this one?
That's a good one.
The next movie should be talking in a Canadian accent, like, hey, like he always does.
Hey, that would be
Montreal Canadian hockey goalie mask.
Be like, no way, yeah.
Oops, sorry about stabbing
I looked.
you
There
there.
were a few Mike Myers. There's like a former NFL defensive tackle. There was a baseball pitcher. New Zealand Supreme Court justice was named Michael Myers. But there's only one of them. There's a race car driver named Michael Myers. He's the only one that was born after the movie debuted. Is this something that if you had the last name Myers, would you like? No offense, Mike. Would you name your child Mike or Michael if your last name was Myers? I would tend to lean away from that if my last name was Myers.
I feel like that would be a real ballsy move if you did.
There's people that lean into stuff like that. I know a few people that
Yeah.
have Jesse James and things like that, where they've named their kids that way to get the name Jesse James.
So with old school movie villains, I'm going to give you 3. You got to give me a gold medal, silver medal, and bronze medal. So let's go Mike Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason from Friday the 13th. Who do you guys give the gold, silver, and bronze to?
I give the gold to Freddy Krueger, silver to Michael Myers, and then the bronze to Jason.
Wow. Okay.
I do think that Friday the 13th, that whole genre, I like it a little better with the portraying of the horror of everything. I think that's
that whole series.
That whole series, I absolutely love it. Even like the remake that they have, that we're not talking about Friday the 13th, but I do like those a lot better. And when it comes to like villains, I think Freddy, he's more ruthless in a way.
So what do you say, Hannah? What did you?
Oh, honestly, I gotta just leave that one to Austin.
She's not seen Friday the 13th. She has not seen Jason. She hasn't seen.
I mean,
she's only seen Halloween so far.
From what I know about the Friday the 13th and like Freddy Krueger, I guess I could say I agree with the gold medal. But as far as comparing Michael Myers and
Jason,
I have no idea because I've only seen the one. But
so I know what we got to do.
Oh, man.
And let me tell you, Friday the 13th is a lot more actually scarier than Halloween.
I would like to sleep. I've already been having enough nightmares as is. Just baseline without the scary movies.
Well, lucky for you, October 13th will be the next Friday the 13th. So it looks like you have homework.
There is one this month.
And
Yep.
so here's a funny thing. I actually planned a camping trip on the weekend of Friday the 13th. My first night sleeping there is on Friday night. So
You're going by yourself, too, aren't
I'm
you?
going by myself too. And there just happens to be a lake just about 100 yards away from me.
I'll keep you guys posted
Wow.
on whether he makes it back or not.
That's a brave
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So I didn't even think about it when I was making the reservation. I'm like, well, guess we're going to see what happens.
So if you can tell us where it is, we'll go outside and like make bear noises outside his tent or something to really get him riled up. Which,
It's not up in the North Shore of Minnesota or anything.
yeah, we had that as kids. We slept over at the neighbor's house in their front yard. First time we were sleeping outside, we'd have been 10 years old or whatever. And apparently my dad stopped on the way to work in the morning and was like making noises outside the tent. We just all slept through it.
Wow.
It was
A
a
for effort, bud.
valiant effort.
So there was Halloween was first, and then Friday the 13th, and then they just started coming out with every one-day holiday. Like there was an April Fool Me Day, and there was Deadly Night, Silent Night with a Christmas theme where Santa Claus was the killer, and so I mean, what would you? I think I'm working on a screenplay right now called Cyber Monday. Well, do you think that would be pretty scary? I just need some investors. So if you guys would like to invest,
Yeah.
I'm going to put it up on Kickstarter.
Right, maybe you can partner with Amazon or something, get some deals going.
Look at that. Amazon, if you're listening, we got a proposition for you.
So you guys think the movie Halloween was scary? Me and Brian had some really scary Halloween costumes back in the 1970s, and we're going to talk about them. But first, I want to know, Hannah and Austin, what was your first? Do you remember what you were your first time for Halloween, and what was your favorite Halloween costumes?
So, I can't tell you what I first was for Halloween, but the first costume I remember was Barney, the big purple dinosaur. I loved him, so of course I was Barney, and I had my little Power Wheels Harley Davidson, and I would ride around that in my whole Barney costume.
Wow,
I know, I was real cool.
that's pretty badass.
You laugh, but yes, you were real cool.
I know, everybody in the neighborhood knew who was coming when they saw the dinosaur costume and the Power Wheels. But I think my favorite one, we actually had this question at work the other day. I think it was when I did Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games.
That was a good costume. Because let me just tell you, it's 2012, and The Hunger Games just came out. Hannah, as a younger version of herself, looked exactly like Jennifer Lawrence from The Hunger Games. I mean, the face,
Wow.
the hair, everything. She got a leather jacket, she got a bow, and it worked. If I could pull up a picture right now, I would, but I don't know how far I have to go. Well, I have to go back to 2012.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just uncanny. I'll have to send it to you in an email when I find it, because it's just it's crazy how much she looks like Jennifer Lawrence. What were you in 2012? Like 15?
Yeah, 15,
Yeah.
something like that. I really didn't think much of it. I was just like, oh, a couple people have told me I kind of look like her, so I'll dress up as,
Kinda?
I'll
It's
dress
just
up as her for
kinda.
Halloween, and I'm walking down the hallways at school, because I'm wearing my costume at school, and I kid you not, the hallway goes silent, and I look over, and everybody's just, like, staring at me as I'm walking down the hallway. It was the weirdest thing ever. But it was a good costume. I had a lot of fun with it.
My daughter was in swimming, and they had it over Halloween, so their swim teams always did Halloween things. So the one time her and her bestie were dressed up as like Danny Zuko and Sandy from Grease, and my daughter dressed up as Danny Zuko, and she looked almost 100% like Johnny Depp from 21 Jump Street.
I mean, impressive, but
What about you? What was your costume?
Yeah, Austin, what was your first and favorite costume?
First one I can remember, I would say I was Harry Potter. I was when I was a kid, I was definitely big into Harry Potter. I don't really remember a whole lot from like earlier than that, like what I would wear as a costume. As a favorite, which is it's gonna sound weird. It wasn't actually for Halloween, but it was for the haunt I worked at, the Dead End Hayride. And when I would dress up as this, I'd have this black and white striped long sleeve, and I had this really creepy clown mask on, and I would just be this psychotic clown for the night, every night for 27 nights. And so I'd say that had to be my favorite costume to be a part of, and yelling at customers, and I'm a distraction.
Oh yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun with my hayride costumes too, especially working out.
So wait, you said it's the black and white striped shirt and a clown's mask, and you weren't approached by like Major League Baseball to be a home plate umpire?
I had that thought too, but unfortunately, no. My career did not take off from there.
And you had to do it 27 days in a row. Were you like a method actor, like Robert De Niro? Did you start to lose yourself in the role after like day 16? You know, where you start.
I mean, you definitely lose yourself out there.
Oh yeah, you start getting for those last couple weeks, and like if you don't have to go to work during the day, half the time you're not even washing the makeup off, so you're coming in with some half baked makeup that they just kind of touch up, and you go and you do it, and you're already half gone, so you don't even know what you're doing.
You don't. You kind of take on the character, and yeah, like Hannah said, you just do it, and you get through it at a certain point.
I mean, truly, it's one of the only jobs where you get paid to yell at people, and when you work in customer service, let me tell you, a lot of that pent up anger from those shitty customers comes out when you're faced with them, and you get to be the asshole. You're paid to be the asshole.
Yeah, when they start talking back to you, you talk right back to them, and you can't get in trouble. Yeah, you can't.
It's hard to get in trouble.
It's really hard to get in trouble unless you're like cussing at a kid or something like that. But
we usually had fun with the kids, though. We were nice to them.
We were very nice to the kids. If a kid was like super scared, like it was always fun seeing them go from the scared little kid, and you're actually like talking nice with them and everything, and then all of a sudden they're absolutely loving it. And through the rest of the show, they're giving all the actors high fives and everything, and they're just loving it.
On their parents and on their older siblings and everything, so now they're having fun.
Exactly. Like, hey, you want to see your dad scream like a little girl? Well, watch this.
So I sent you guys some pictures of some like 1970s Halloween because to really scare you, I sent you those scary pictures.
I mean, I did scream like a little girl when I saw them.
Yeah, that was me and Brian's life.
Yeah,
when
you'd go to Target.
Yep, and they were all in cake boxes with the cellophane front on them.
Yep,
yeah.
And they had the mask in the front. And the mask, if you didn't carefully put it on, you could give yourself a gigantic gash down the side of your face because they were like vinyl and they weren't very well rounded. The rubber band was held on with the weakest little staples in the corner, and you'd put it over your head, and you could take it on and off like 3 times. So it's like once it went on, it was.
And
there.
It would give you a headache after 2 minutes because that rubber band was just sucking the life out of your head.
Yeah, it's like even though it's this tiny thin little rubber band, it's like the strongest thing in the world. It's pushing in the back of your head. The little nose slots were just so tiny that you feel like you're suffocating. You can't see.
Breathe through a straw.
The vinyl smell.
The eye slots were like the television edit of Michael Myers at the beginning, except you couldn't even see that good, really.
You could barely see 5 feet in front of you. And then the vinyl suits, like I think one year I had a skeleton, and to put that on, to try to put your legs through it, it just wasn't happening.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, the mask was in front, and then there's a rubber band in back, and then like the vinyl, they were in these cheap vinyl suits, and you tied them in back because Velcro wasn't invented yet. You tied them in back like a hospital,
like hospital gown.
Hospital gown. So you just had the costume from the front, and I was Superman my first year with that stupid I still get a headache thinking about that mask rubber band, and I was Superman with a ski jacket because we're all Minnesotans here, so. One year I was Superman with a ski jacket. One year I was Evel Knievel with a ski jacket.
Oh yeah, I remember being a witch with a winter jacket on. You know,
we had that. My son, one of the first times he went out, he was Buzz Lightyear, And we put on so many layers underneath them, we ended up looking like the Michelin Man.
or Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Or the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Just the white outer skin, but it was just like he had 4 layers on underneath.
And that was the only thing the cold affected, because my favorite costume was I went as Darth Vader, so it must have been 77, right about the year we're talking about. And it was the same cheap, I had the same vinyl cheap outfit, except I got a lightsaber, and this lightsaber was basically just a flashlight with a inflatable tube and
like a clown
sheath.
Balloon.
Well, it was, yeah, and I thought it was really cool, but then we went out and it was 40 degrees that night, and there was a little deflation, so my lightsaber needed like some Viagra, because I was working with a wet noodle there. And yeah, that's my Halloween memories. Halloween. And it was always cold in Minnesota on Halloween.
Yeah, my Halloween memory. The one year my dad had his dress and uniforms from being in the Army. We ended up wearing those, and that was, you say, warm, and we were just soldiers. I, however, grew up in a small town. I went and measured it today on Google Maps. We would have walked 2 3/4 miles to go past 29 houses, of which less than half would have had candy out, wearing those stupid plastic vinyl masks where you could barely see and everything in the 35-degree weather.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I maybe sour. It wasn't so big on Halloween when the movie and that came out, because it's like Halloween's like, this is like, it's like torture. We got to march 2 miles, 2 3/4 miles to get, 5 things of candy.
And do kids still trick or treat, or do they? Because we don't get any. I think they all go to like Halloween bash parties or.
It seems like it. I mean, I haven't been a part of any like giving out candy in almost 10 years working at a haunt, so I really couldn't say.
My parents still get a few trick-or-treaters and everything. We're gonna put some candy out at our apartment just because we're gonna be home anyway, so we'll have that option there, but I don't think there's too many kids that live in our buildings. So.
It kind of depends, because when I first moved back into Cottage Grove in the early 2000s, and so my kids would have been prime trick-or-treating age, we had a night where we had like over 200 kids, one of those fantastic weather nights, and we got to meet so many kids in the area. And then now where we live in a different part of Cottage Grove, in the last 4 years, I think we have 6 total. So we don't even buy that candy anymore.
I think it all depends on the area. I know a lot of schools and communities will do like the trunk or treat, especially for the younger kids, so they're not staying out late, everything. I know, like in my hometown, if it was like particularly cold or something, the churches would do like a little thing for all the kids to go to and get candy and dress up and everything. But yeah, I think it just kind of depends on the community.
Yeah.
And the neighborhood.
I remember once I was visiting a friend who had moved to the Chicago suburbs area, and I was getting ready to leave. It was like 11:30 in the morning on Halloween, getting ready to come back to Minnesota, and they had their first trick-or-treaters of the day. It's like at 11:30 a.m. What's going on here? Typically here, it's like at dusk.
I know. I mean, that I always remember trick-or-treating in the dark, and that was the best part. That's what made it Halloween. That's what made it spooky and everything, was going out in the dark and trick-or-treating.
You're right. The first time you could go without your parents, and the first time you'd go after dark, you felt like you were the big deal.
Oh yeah, that was
for you, Hannah, it would be the second time you felt like you're the big deal, because you did have the Barney costume on the Harley Power Wheel.
That was a pretty.
So you were used to being a big deal, but for the rest of us, when you got to go out without, or your parents would stay home and you had to supervise your younger siblings.
Well, I was the younger sibling, so once I got to go out on my own, I just got to go out on my own.
So we can't talk Halloween without talking candy. So trick-or-treating, like I alluded to earlier in the episode, kind of really started in the U.S. in the 30s and 40s. At that point in time, it was kind of like homemade cakes and cookies and fruit and nuts and toys and coins. It wasn't until the 50s when candy manufacturers started, as it grew in popularity, trick-or-treating grew in popularity, candy manufacturers started, marketing their stuff because it was affordable and convenient for the people. And then by the 70s, and 70s there was like the Tylenol scare where people were lacing things, where it kind of became that the only acceptable thing to give out at Halloween was store-bought and sealed treats. And that's kind of where we are today. So my favorite is the Milky Way, which was made by Frank Mars, good Minnesota kid, who invented the Milky Way in 1923. That's my favorite Halloween
Wow.
candy. If I got a Milky Way bar, it was better than a rock that Charlie Brown got.
I got a rock.
It's funny. I think Halloween candy gets smaller and smaller every year because, like, I don't know if Brian agrees with me, but you're saying Milky Way. Do you remember when those Milky Ways and Snickers, they were like, what, 10 inches long? And you'd get
Yes.
like 18
Now
or
they're like
19
your
of them.
lightsaber toy with the shrinkage. and at one time, I mean, they're making them smaller, right? Because they're selling for the same price to make them smaller. They're going to be able to make more money or keep their costs down. But one time when they shrunk them, they promoted it as, now with 10% fewer calories. It's like, yeah, because you made the bar 10% smaller and you're
now
selling
I'm
it for
gonna
the
eat
same price.
10% more pieces of candy because of that.
Yeah. And then they had the mini and fun size, and now there's the bite size ones, which aren't a bite size. Those are like half a bite size.
Those are a nibble.
And the M&Ms have like 3 M&Ms in them. Like,
I was gonna say the salted nut rolls, the bite size ones, you just get one peanut.
Literally.
what was your guys' least favorite? Mine was the popcorn. Remember, somebody would always give you a popcorn ball, and then you'd wait till last to eat it, and then by then it was stale. It was like a styrofoam ball.
Yeah, when I got them, they were always stale. Like it's like somebody had them from like last Halloween. I'd bite into it and you swore I broke a tooth.
It was always the apple. There was always one house that gave me an apple.
What?
Yeah.
Not even not even like a caramel covered apple.
No, just a straight
the
up apple. And then by the
audacity.
time you get home, all the candy and the single apple are in a pillowcase all night, so the apple's all busted up and bruised.
Yeah. And it spoiled everything else in the bag too.
But yeah, the popcorn ball too. That was not a favorite.
Did the apple make your sack sticky? Sorry. I had to get it out or it was just going to bounce around in my head.
Let the intrusive thought win.
Always let the intrusive thought win.
The candied corn, I remember people just giving you
I was going to say
it'd be
candy
loose.
corn.
They just give a fistful of it, and it'd be all loose.
Yeah,
I'm like,
not even in a bag.
Just look at it
It's
and
not
you're
even in a
like,
bag.
what is this?
The circus peanuts, those foamy.
Yeah, circus
things.
peanuts are way worse than candy corn. Candy corn has been around since the 1880s.
Candy coated styrofoam
It's all
peanuts.
the original candy
Yeah.
corn from the 1880s.
It could be the first batch they made. The company that does Jelly Belly jelly beans has been making candy corn since 1898. I found that funny. I was
Well, they
on the
can
History
stop.
Channel reading.
They've done their time and they can
Yeah.
stop making it.
They should refresh the recipe by now, I think. Would be great.
Seriously. I mean, the only thing that's like interesting about candy corn now is that if you stack them all in a row, it looks like a cob of corn. That's about it.
Yeah.
You don't mix them with peanuts and eat them that way?
No. I cannot stand it. It's like just it's a chunk of sugar with. I mean,
It's like eating a candle.
Expand.
It's like eating
I
a
think
bite
you're
out
onto
of a
something.
candle.
I mean, the candle thing is it's like a chunk of sugar that tastes like colored wax. Is really what it comes down to.
It tastes like what a caramel scented candle smells like.
I thought you were about to say what it tastes like. I'm like, Hannah, do we have to have a talk?
Well, we talked about our least favorite candy. What about our favorite candies? What about you
What
guys?
did you guys have for your favorite candies?
Reese's. Reese's all the way. Especially now, I love the pumpkin shaped ones. I know those are newer in like the last 5-ish or so years, but Reese's are always my favorite.
And I'd have to say Kit Kat. I mean, I always love a good Kit Kat. I don't know what it is about a Kit Kat, but I can eat a bunch of those things and not feel sick of them.
That originated from England in like 1935, Kit Kat.
Really? I did
Solid
not know
choice.
that. Wow.
Brian's just
about you,
breaking out
Mike?
all the
What was your-
stats on everything.
Hey, we found my wheelhouse. Scary movies, no. Candy, yes.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have to go with Hannah. I like the Reese's too. And what's funny is like you get for Easter you get the Reese's eggs, and
it's
they always taste different no matter what shape they are. Did you ever notice that? They always have like
Yeah. Right
taste
now
of
I've got a cauldron full of all the Halloween shaped ones. So I've got the ghosts, the bats, and the pumpkins. They all taste different. They came from the same bag, but they taste
They're
different.
the same ingredients, but they taste different at different shapes.
It's got to be that. It's got to be that chocolate to that peanut butter ratio.
Yeah.
It's got to be that.
So two things to that. One is Do you remember advertisements when someone would be walking down the street eating a chocolate bar, someone would be walking down the street eating peanut butter, and they'd turn the corner and collide, and then the guy's like, "You got chocolate in my peanut butter, and you got peanut butter in my chocolate."
Chocolate. Peanut butter.
Hey!
Oh, hey, you got your chocolate in my peanut butter.
Peanut butter on my chocolate.
Delicious.
Two great tastes that taste great together. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Real milk chocolate, delicious peanut butter.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
And
Do you remember those commercials? Or were they out before you guys would have came to age of consuming
I
TV?
vaguely remember those. I feel like they had a reboot when I was like young, but they didn't last very long.
I personally have never seen a commercial like that. I've seen.
Do you believe that that's a commercial?
commercials of like from like the 70s or 80s, whenever they made them. But other than that, I've never seen a commercial like that.
That's me and Brian had to watch that commercial 8,000 times, bro?
Yes.
It was on every 5 minutes.
You'd say it at school, right? You got peanut butter in my chocolate. And then one of my favorites too that is the Russell Stover's does right now they're doing marshmallow pumpkins, and there'd be marshmallow with milk chocolate, marshmallow dark chocolate, then they'll have marshmallow caramel, then they'll have caramel, and then they'll have like raspberry, and they'll have a caramel apple one, and then they'll do Santas for Christmas, and then they'll do Easter eggs for Easter, and then there'll be about 4 months where you can't find them because there's no holiday coming up. But I love those. It's a little bit better than your standard marshmallow. Like Peeps are terrible with marshmallow, and even just the plain Hershey like eggs you get at Christmas time, or the Santas are
what's up with
not
the
good.
Halloween Peeps now? That's just out of bounds.
I'm sorry, they're doing what now?
Oh, they've been doing
Halloween
those for a few
Peeps.
years.
Really?
Yeah.
Disgusting.
They're just Halloween.
Oh.
They're Halloween colored
Yeah.
peeps.
Literally just orange and like purple and
Right.
like,
Yeah.
that's
They got
gross.
little
Peeps
Mike Myers and Freddy Krueger masks on them too.
Oh.
Oh well,
I don't
I'll
know,
give
I'm
them.
just-
I'll give them a C for ingenuity, but other than that, they can rot in the packaging. Which
They
once
can't get
came.
the original mask. They don't have the technology, just like the franchise.
So if you're giving out candy, like if someone else has bought the Halloween candy and you're the one that's giving it out to the trick or treaters that are coming to the door, do you intentionally not give out your favorites so that at the end of the night they'll be left? I mean, isn't that what part of being an adult is?
I mean,
if I ever gave out candy, yeah, I would probably
Here's the
do
thing.
that.
Or should
in
I have
my
admitted that
house,
over the air?
We always bought a bag that was for us, and then we had the bag that was for the trick or treaters.
Smart.
Yeah,
Smart.
I mean, honestly, I grew up. We always had Halloween candy around throughout the whole month of October, so we just kind of handed everything
I think
out.
I've hit on a theme here, but when I was young, when it was like late in the day at night and the trick-or-treater came to the door, my parents were saying, "Oh, we've ran out of candy. We'll have to take some out of Brian's." I had a little pumpkin that I took. I think they did that on purpose to rile me up.
I think you're onto something here. Yeah.
So there's a theme that my parents are a little bit on the prankster side.
Oh, speaking of Halloween pranks, there's a story I read a couple years ago, and I want to do it sometime. I feel like me, you, and
Yeah.
Christian would have fun doing it.
Let's hear it.
Basically, these people said they got a knock on their door on Halloween, and they opened it up, and there was a door frame with a door.
Oh,
right in
I've
front of
seen
their
this.
door,
Yes.
with
Okay.
a sign that said knock. So they knocked on it, and they opened the door, and it was a couple of college kids dressed up like old ladies, and they're like, "Oh, look at you in your costumes!" And they had a bowl of candy, and they're giving them candy at their door and everything.
Oh,
That's brilliant.
awesome.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
that's brilliant.
that's my kind of Halloween prank. Just good, clean fun. Everybody
is-
gets a laugh out of it.
I will definitely dress up like an old lady just for that.
And when they were done, they just pick up the whole door frame and go on to the next house.
Oh wow!
Like nothing ever happened. I love it. Well, I know what we're doing on Halloween now.
I mean, we might as well.
And then head up to the dead end for the after party.
Oh yeah, yeah.
See? We got the whole night planned out. Look at that.
Wow.
We've got
You
a
guys are
pretty
high
full
rolling.
Halloween weekend and Halloween.
Sure do. Ooh.
I think me and Brian will be in bed by 8:30.
Halloween's a Tuesday this year, so it's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to bed really early that night. Yeah.
Just take the next day off. You'll be fine.
Little.
Level it all. The end of the world's coming. Level it all.
World's on fire, little.
Well, when we were, in our teen years, I don't remember many Halloween parties that people would go to. But by the time my kids got into to school and everything, it seemed like Halloween was more of a party night, and they've
It's
had
all parties now.
lots of parties. And
parties, yeah.
I know that there's people in the neighborhood had pumpkin carving parties like earlier in the month. Get together people, you'd carve pumpkins. There'd be little contests, and there'd be treats, and you bring your own, Halloween themed treats. So, like I said, the movie, nothing before the Halloween movie came out, nothing like that would have happened. I think that was the movie was a spur into these kind of things. And then just any excuse to get together with your friends, I'm all for that, even if it is a Tuesday night and the last day of October.
I mean, it honestly should be a national federal holiday where we should all get it off.
I agree.
Like, we got to get a petition going.
All right. So we have 2 now that we'll get a petition going, because we're also lobbying for the Friday before Labor Day weekend to be a national holiday to celebrate the passing of Jimmy Buffett. So we could have a 4-day weekend. And then now Halloween has to be a national holiday as well. So we can all get together, reminisce about the vinyl costumes, and wait for the old ladies to come to the doors to play the trick-or-treat prank on you.
So I do have a question for you guys. Mike, you had mentioned how you were Darth Vader when you were a kid. What is it like with just the way Star Wars has continued to go, seeing such a pop culture icon be a favorite costume for kids now, and also watching how much better the costumes have gotten over the years?
What I remember is I saw it came out in '77. I was 7. I was just blown away. The next movie came out in 1980, so that was 3 years later. Now they come out. The Disney Channel has something every 2 months. Star Wars something. And I mean, we were just rumoring. We're like, do you think there's going to be another movie? 2 years into it, we're like, you think there's going to be a sequel? And
now you've got TV series and everything.
And you can go back, watch the old episodes anytime you want. Now they're on Disney Channel or whatever, and just
We've gotten used to it over the years because there's a lot of things like that. Halloween movie, you look back and it's like, oh, it's just all these tropes from the thriller movies now that are done better, that it was done that way. Costumes are much better now than they were in the 70s. We've gotten used to that. I know even in the world of sports, like the Willie Mays catch was amazing, and now you see 3 of them each night on Sports Center because it's like the cameras are capturing it, and it's just things have gotten better. Where it's just we're used to it now, where the things are great. We're lucky that we're still at an age where we can enjoy the new things and things like that. We're not crotchety old men yet.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about Mike, but I'll speak for myself that I'm not a crotchety old man yet.
I mean, keyword yet, right?
Yet. But I've got to imagine that it's fun having something in common like that with so many generations over the years. You all have this character that you like enough that you want to be for Halloween, and everybody knows who it is, and everybody has their own kind of connection to it.
Yeah, that is true. It warms your heart when you see something that you loved as a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old. Basically, almost 2 generations later, that the kids are still dressing up on it, in it, and enjoying it, and wanting to be it. That's certainly something. And I think I'm 3 years from telling the trick-or-treaters to get off my yard.
All right, we'll hold you to that.
I know you're not recording again until middle of the month, but do you want to touch on any of the shows or anything you have planned coming up for your own podcast?
Yeah, Austin and Hannah are with the Bleeding Grave podcast, in case you don't remember. What's coming up over there?
Yeah, so, we're in spooky season, so we're planning some spooky stories, some festive stories for the month. I'm not going to drop any names, but we do have a special guest coming on our Halloween episode as well. They're a paranormal investigation team from Minnesota and everything. So we're just waiting until our following episode to drop their name and announce that and everything. But we're really excited. I've been talking with one of the founders of the team for a couple of months now, and we were watching some of their content earlier this week just to get familiar with it. And so we're going to tag team a story for our Halloween episode.
Yeah, I mean, we really can't say a whole lot, but it does take place in the Midwest, which is the perfect setting for spooky season. And it is, I mean, I'm looking at the name right now, and I wish we could say, but at the same time, we are super excited to talk about this and to have our first tag team story. We've talked about it plenty of times on the show, and we are finally making it happen. We're at it's going to be on episode 25 for our Halloween special. It's perfect. 25th episode. Got a special guest
before Halloween.
Yeah, right before Halloween, and we couldn't be more stoked about it, and we cannot wait until this releases on October 30th.
Yeah.
Do it for another episode, folks. I would love to thank Hannah and Austin from the Bleeding Grave podcast. Check it out. It's a very different podcast than ours. They talk about the macabre, but as you can tell, they have a very good sensibility and they have a great sense of humor that they do it with, and they're just knocking it out of the park over there. So check it out, the Bleeding Grave. It's on the same format that you're listening to on this on. And here at the 70s versus the 80s, we have another episode coming up right away. We have another Halloween episode. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown listening party. So me and Brian are going to listen or watch the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, and you can listen along with us as we wisecrack back at the scene at a cartoon that we've all seen too many times. So that's going to be a fun one. Thank you for joining us again at the 70s versus the 80s. See you later, my babies.
40 degrees that night, and there was a little deflation.
Yeah.
So my lightsaber needed like some Viagra because I was working with a wet noodle there.